Welcome back to episode number 7 of HRL 10. For you first-time viewers, HRL 10 simply stands for taking 10 minutes out of your day to find somebody that you normally don't talk to or associate with, or maybe who thinks or acts or lives different than you do. And so you just take 10 minutes to hear their story, why they are the way they are, why they do what they do, why they believe the way they believe. Go to R, which is respect. Whether you like that or not, whether you agree with it or not, or whether you believe it or not, you're just simply taking the time to understand them. And then L is you're just walking away from that conversation in love. Love doesn't mean you have to agree with everything somebody does. It just simply means that you're trying to understand them a little bit better in the way they function in the world. So, getting right into what our episode is about today. It's about anxiety. That seems to be like a epidemic right now and has been for a while. And then I actually wrote down like 20 bullet points of ways that I've tried to help manage it over the last 7 or 8 years. And some of these things you've heard, some of them you haven't. And I'm just going to go through each one of those steps and just briefly explain them to you a little bit. So hopefully you can grab something out of there that will help you. So there's really a couple different types of anxiety. You know, there's the type that when you have if you're getting a new job or you're trying something new or you're going on that first date or, just a simple normal, like you're nervous. I'd probably explain that a little bit better that way, or nervous rather than anxious. And that stuff's normal. That's built into us. We can never go through life without being anxious at all. But normally those things, they come up. And then once the situation that you're anxious or nervous about goes away, then that anxiety goes away with it. Today, what I'm talking about seems to be like what a lot of people are dealing with in today's society. And man, I've really dealt with it over the last 7 or 8 years. And that's the type of anxiety that affects your life. It affects every day. It affects, like, as soon as you get up in the morning, it's the first thing you think about. It's everything that you think about all day long. And then when you go to bed, you think, oh my gosh, am I going to have that again tomorrow? And for me, I remember that it just, I remember the exact day that it happened 7 years ago. And I remember where I was standing, which was in the bathroom. It was on the anniversary of my first wife's death, the first anniversary. And man, I just felt it. It went from my head down to my toes. And just this, if you dealt with anxiety, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's just this overwhelming feeling of like, I got to get out of here. My heart started racing and my chest got tight and I started sweating. And man, I just lost my appetite and I lost weight. For about 2 weeks, 3 weeks probably. And man, it was so scary because I'd never really been through that level. It just day in, day out, my startle response was high. I couldn't sleep for more than an hour and a half at a time. I had zero appetite. So, it was scary having that anxiety. And now I would say that my anxiety is about having anxiety. So when it feels like it's coming back, man, I just get like super amped up, like, oh my gosh, I don't want to experience that again. And so I start worrying about it, and I amp myself up. And there may be, everybody's a little bit different. Maybe it feels like you can't catch your breath. Maybe it feels like, for me, sometimes, man, it just felt like I was losing my mind because it just kept turning and turning and turning and my thoughts wouldn't stop. And so it can be all kinds of different things. For me, I also felt like amped up. Sometimes I would wake up in the bed and it felt like there was just this small vibration in the bed in my body. And it was just that energy in me. It's just, I don't know. That's the only way that I can explain it, is that it's just this internal energy that I couldn't get out. Right. So first of all, I don't want to get into a real deep of that because that could be a whole nother episode. But I do want to just kind of briefly just touch on it. For those of you, whether you're just now getting anxiety and you don't know what to do about it, or you've had it for weeks, months, years, and you're trying to fight it. But I've done a lot of work and a lot of reading and a lot of listening on how the brain reacts. And the brain's main function, and this starts like in utero, but a lot of our stuff comes from our childhood. But the brain's main function is to protect itself at all times, right? It wants to feel safe. It doesn't want to feel in danger. And God ingrained that in us. And, that fight, flight, or freeze is natural because we are built for what we were when humans first came on this planet. And like literally just about everything back then could kill you. And so if you didn't have your senses about you, you could get killed. So that's normal. That's in us, right? But now we turn that into work or experiences or people or situations, and our body reacts the same. So what it'll do is you'll get that startle response like, oh my gosh, this is dangerous. I don't want to be here. And your body dumps those chemicals. Your brain dumps those chemicals into your body, and that's why your heart rate goes up, and that's why your chest tightens, and that's why your breathing gets off. And that's normal, but it's scary. It's when it becomes stuck that's the problem. And I got to be honest. I think that's why I still deal with it today, is because I'm stuck in that fear of having it again. That any little time that I feel it coming up, I start getting scared. And so I feel like most of us, out of the fight, flight, and freeze, I feel like most of us get stuck in that flight. That's the anxious feeling or the response where you just want to be like, oh my gosh, I got to get out of here. I got to get away from people. I got to get away from this situation. I got to run. I got to leave. And so I think that's where that internal energy starts building up, right? And so this is where addictions begin, because you feel this anxiety come on and you're like, oh my God, I don't like this. I got to try something. And it could be alcohol. It could be drugs. It could be food. It could be working out. It could be sex. It could be overworking. It's just something that gives you that little hit of dopamine, like, oh, it makes your brain feel something other than the anxiety. And that feels good, and it makes it go away for a little bit. And then it starts coming back. And then your brain remembers, okay, what did we do last time to get rid of this? And so it'll go back to what you tried, like whether that was drugs or alcohol or sex or food or working out. And it'll want to replicate that, right? And so that's how addictions begin, and that's how these cycles start. Sorry, changing my note page here. But you want nothing more, at the bottom end of the day, you want nothing more than to just make this go away at all cost. So your brain just is always searching for that thing to make it feel better. And even though you may know in the moment this is not a great choice, it's anything to just to make this go away, even if it's for 5 or 10 minutes. And the one thing that I found out about anxiety is it's kind of a vicious circle. You feel this anxiety come up, and you want nothing more for it to go away, and you want nothing more than to not feel it. So I would be like, okay, don't get anxious. Don't get anxious. Oh my gosh, here it comes. Don't get anxious. And the more that I thought about it, the more I got anxious. And the more I got anxious, the more my mind would spin, and the more I thought about it. It was just this vicious circle, right? And the more I fight it, I just feel like the deeper hole that I get in. And so I'm going to go into this list of things that I've tried, and I'm going to briefly explain them all to you and try to keep this somewhat short, but there's 20 points. And even if you've tried some of them, maybe some of them you haven't heard of. So here we go. The first one is box breathing. That's becoming pretty popular, but just in case you haven't heard of it, that is simply just closing your eyes, breathing in through your nose for 4 seconds, and you hold that for 4 seconds, and then you breathe out for 4 seconds, and you hold that for 4 seconds. And you just replicate that. And you do 5 cycles of that, right? Breathing is the one thing that I notice the most. And take this big, deep in through your belly breaths, right? Okay. The second one you can do, and you can do this anytime during the day, but I found out it was best for me at nighttime when I was laying down. I put my earbuds in, get in your bed, get on YouTube, and type in anxiety relief frequency music. And it'll bring up these different frequencies you can play. And it's just super relaxing and super calming. And while I'm listening to that music, I'm doing that box breathing too. And it makes you sleep better. It makes you more relaxed. So that was always pretty helpful. The next one is, exercise. So this, when you get into anxiety, it literally is just nothing more that's pent up energy that's screaming to get out. There's something going on, and your body wants to burn that off. And holding that in makes it just worse, right? So exercise for me has been huge. Now, I get pretty extreme on my workouts, and I always have. So if you are an avid, if you work out all the time, just keep doing that and get a brisk walk in or a hard run. Make it to where your heart rate is up and hard for at least 30 minutes. If you can't do that, if you're not used to working out, just go out and get a brisk walk or do something in your house. Jump up and down, play some music, just something for a good, even 10 or 15 minutes if you're not used to working out. Just something to get your heart rate up and burn that energy out. And you can also, while you're doing that, if you're in a place where you feel comfortable, scream or breathe or do whatever you got to do. The exercise is huge. Get up and get out. This is a big one because, man, when you're feeling anxious, you want nothing more than to just disconnect from people and disconnect from situations, and you want to just hide. And to me, it feels good because I don't want to be around anybody. But it makes it worse because then I'm just in my head more and I'm not doing anything to burn it off. So the thing that you don't want to do, that's the thing that you need to do the most. You need to get up and get out, whether that be in nature, whether that be to the grocery store, whether that be going out in your yard, just doing something to get your mind on another track. I actually love this one now. I hated it in the beginning. Go take an ice cold shower. And I mean, not just a lukewarm shower, something that's a little chilly. I mean, like when you get in it, you start out like instantly, it's as cold as it will possibly go, no warm water, and you watch how your anxiety will melt away. It's almost impossible to be anxious when you're freezing like that. But I actually do that 3 or 4 times a week now just for therapeutic purposes. And I love it. And you'll actually come out of there feeling refreshed and amazed. And do that for 3 minutes, okay? Loud music. This was another one, man. I would put my earbuds in and I would just crank up my phone. And I like hardcore rap music, or things like hardcore metal like Tool and Rage Against the Machine. And just turn that up as loud as you can. And, man, move to it. And, again, kick, cuss, scream, whatever you got to do to get that energy out. It's just reforming the brain and your thought process to get away from that anxiety. Yelling. Now, this is something that I started doing. I don't do it as much now, but man, when I first had anxiety, it's the only way that I can explain it is I want to get this stuff out. I would actually go in my barn here, and when nobody was around, because I felt stupid doing it. But man, I would go up my barn and I would just yell as loud as I could possibly yell and F you, and you're not going to beat me, and screw this, and I'm not going to let anxiety take me, and I'm sick of this, and just whatever's internal in you, right? And it's going to feel dumb. And as a Christian, I don't know, cuss. You ain't around anybody else. To me, it made me feel better. But just yell as loud as you possibly can. I would actually come away from it hoarse and my throat would hurt me afterwards. But man, it just releases that energy. And if you don't have a barn like I do, if there's somebody always in your house, then go take a drive in your car or go walk out take a hike, go to a park, go somewhere where you can just cuss and scream and yell and just get that stuff out of you. Breaking and throwing things, that's on here, but I actually had some old stuff in my barn, like an old chair and an old piece of wood. And man, I would just like start slamming that stuff against the floor or slamming it against the wall. And you see this stuff like on these therapies, and you think it's stupid, but it really does help just burn that energy off of you. Don't catastrophize. Ugh. And anxiety makes you catastrophize bad. At least it did me. So I would start thinking about things like, man, what happens? I got this anxiety now. What happens if I go on vacation and I have an anxiety attack? What happens if I go to work and I have an anxiety attack? What happens if I'm around my friends and I have an anxiety attack? And so really, anxiety is nothing more than trying to predict a future with your current situation, right? So you feel this way now and you're like, oh my God, what if this happens? And you're already worried about something that isn't even here yet, and you're not even guaranteed it's going to happen. So try not to catastrophize. I was like, what happens if I can't babysit my grandkids in the future? I was going all the way to there. And still do sometimes if I have it, So just try not to catastrophize. You got a choice to what you tell your brain, and try not to go to those places of the future. That's what anxiety is. Anxiety is worrying about the future. Depression is kind of hanging on to something or sticking in the past, right? Caffeine. I haven't had any caffeine since last September. But caffeine is a big one. That'll just jack your heart rate up. It'll make you anxious. So why not you can do without it. We all can. I didn't think I could. I thought that was something that a habit that I could never break. And I've been off of it almost a year now. And I've drank caffeine all my life. So stay away from that. There was another one that pick 5 things, like when you're predicting and projecting out into the future, pick 5 things to see, smell, touch, taste, hear. Okay, so on each one of those, pick 3 things. You're looking around and you name those things. I see a door. I see a painting. I see a window. And then you just go to touch, taste, smell, see, hear. And you go through all of those. And that'll just help you ground into the right now, the present, instead of projecting into the future. Since I said grounding is another great thing where you can just take off your shoes and take off your socks and go outside and get in the grass for at least 30 minutes. Even if it's just sitting there against a tree, listening to some peaceful music, just get your bare feet in that grass. We're all made up of electrical charge, and putting your feet in that bare grass, it grounds you, and it really does work. It makes you pretty calm. Write down what you're anxious about. And some of us, we don't know. It's our subconscious mind. You're not really sure, but at least you can write down the feelings of being anxious, right? And so write down whatever that is, and then take that piece of paper, whatever you wrote down, and you can either burn it or you can wad it up and throw it away. Just that projection of, I'm getting rid of this in some way, right? It helps your brain think of, okay, I'm doing something to help get rid of this. All right. Give yourself time to sit with it. This one is scary. The counselors I've gone to have always said to that, I can't talk today, have told me to do that, which is to lean into it or feel it. Well, the last thing you want to do when you're feeling like that, man, is to sit with it. First thing you want to do is get up and get busy and, get rid of that feeling. And I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, well, wait a minute. You just told me to go do something. I am. But what I'm telling you is to sit with this. And for me, when I feel anxious, what I would want to do is I'd be like, nope, I'm not going to think that thought. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go out in the yard. I'm going to go exercise. I'm going to go do this. And I never would face it over the course of the day. And I just kept stuffing it and stuffing it and stuffing it. And eventually all that has to come out. So when I say to sit with it, what I mean is just take 30 minutes, man, to just sit there and just go, you know what? I feel you, anxiety. Because the more that you give this a name and the more you give it, speak it out, you take away its power, right? Because it's controlling you when you're going out and doing other things and not facing it. If you can say, all right, anxiety, I feel you. And you know what? Right now, I don't like this. And it's making me feel scared. It's making me feel worried. It's making me feel like I'm losing my mind. It makes me feel like I'm not good enough. It makes me feel like people are going to leave me. Whatever it is, you name those things and bring them out. And then at the end of that, you speak truth. Like my counselor always said, you know, what's the proof in that? So if you think somebody's going to leave you or they're thinking a certain way about that, ask yourself, like, where's the proof? Where's the proof that they're going to do any of that or say any of that? And 9 times out of 10, you'll find out that there is no proof. It's just all in your head. So give yourself a time limit, whether it be 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, to just set with that. As bad as it sucks, as much as it scares you, as bad as it feels, you sit there with it. And you give yourself that time limit of 30 minutes. And at that 30 minutes, you say, okay, I'm done. I'm not talking about it anymore. I'm not thinking about it anymore. And I'm going to get up and I'm going to do something. Because that gives your body, you don't want to always avoid it. And you don't want to always sit in it. So you just do that, the fine line of sitting with it and then getting rid of it. Okay. EMDR, which is another one. That's just something that they do with your eyes. Almost look like a Catholic thing here. It's something they do with your eyes when you have trauma or something happened to you. You don't sleep well. And when you sleep, if you've ever heard of the REM sleep, that's where your eyes, you'll notice people who are in REM sleep, their eyes move back and forth. That's where your brain is processing everything for the day and putting it in the right place. When you have something traumatic happen to you or something anxious, it just gets scattered in your brain. It doesn't get filed into the right place. So EMDR, you'll have to find a therapist that does that, especially. That'll help you. Massages, man, massages are great. If you can, yeah, it's worth it. It's worth the money to have somebody else just rub it on your body and just tell them, hey, I don't want to talk. I just want to lay here, do my massage, have them put some essential oils in there that you can smell. Have them play some of that Zen music or the anxiety relief frequency I was telling you about. It's great for an hour to just have somebody else rubbing that tension out of your body. Visualization is another big one. And visualization is like, for me, I would take an anxious thought and I would visualize like, okay, I'm putting this anxious thought. Let's just say I'm scared I'm going to mess up at work. So I'd be like, okay, I'm picturing this bag. I'm scared I'm going to mess up at work. I would picture myself blowing it into this bag, tying that bag up and dropping it off of a cliff. And I could just watch that bag go down and down and down until it got out of sight. And that just helps get those thoughts out of your head. So, and you can pick the visualization that you want to do. But to me, that visualization of getting rid of it. And I would actually visualize sometimes like anxiety being this great big monster outside of this door, just going, trying to beat in and get to me. And I was on the other side of the door holding that back, That's how it felt like to me. Like I'm trying not to let this thing get to me and get in. I started visualizing like, okay, I'm going to open that door and I'm going to face that monster and I'm just going to let it come in and see what it does to me. And it doesn't do anything to you. So if you can visualize, that big monster that you feel like is threatening you to come in and attack you, and you let it in and it doesn't do anything to you, it kind of gives you that relief that you own your life, not anxiety. Obviously, you can go to a good therapist. That is really good. If you don't find one, like you're not going to find, and you might find somebody who's perfect right off the bat, but a lot of times you don't. You just got to find that person that works for you and that can kind of understand, or maybe they've dealt with it, or you can ask around. There's plenty of therapists. And a lot of times, like my work has EAP, where I get free sessions through work. So your work may have that too, because I know counseling can be super expensive. And a lot of churches do it too. So there's ways, or you can watch a cool HRL10 video to help you. But there's all kinds of ways to deal with that. And then the last one I'm going to go over is just a routine. Like anxiety makes you to where you don't sleep very well, right? And so the big thing that you need to do is get some good sleep, some restful sleep, some deep sleep, the best you can. So try to get yourself on a routine, like where your body knows. I go to bed about 10 or 10:30 every night. My body knows as soon as I hit that bed, it's ready for sleep. So no joke, I can fall asleep in about 2 or 3 minutes. But if I'm feeling anxious, I'll take a shower about 15 minutes before, a nice hot shower, something to calm you down. And then I'll get in bed and I'll put those earbuds in, and I'll start playing that anxiety relief frequency music. And I'll just sit there and box breathe and close my eyes and box breathe and listen to that. Do not watch TV. Do not get on social media. A big thing that I found out is don't eat anything about 3 hours before bedtime, because when you do eat something heavy, your metabolism goes up and it may make you get up and use the bathroom. It may make you kind of anxious and nervous, like you feel like you need to burn that food off. So I would don't eat anything or drink anything about 3 hours before bedtime. I don't like to use Tylenol PM or anything like that, because I feel like the next day I just wake up even more cloudy headed, which makes me more anxious because I'm worried about that. But I always like to end these things with a Bible verse, and I got to put you on pause real quick while I go get that Bible verse, and I'll be right back.